Anthony Petrie is an award-winning poster artist and designer based in Los Angeles. His portfolio includes work across a broad range of mediums, and he likes creating good design for good people. Anthony has been working professionally and commercially for over 16 years, collaborating with some of the most prestigious brands in the world. His graphic design, illustration, and product designs can be seen everywhere, from entertainment and broadcasting industries to sports and athletic brands. Welcome, Anthony Petrie. Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, my guest is Anthony Petrie. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you. As you can tell, the lighting will change because we're filming this last.
And now I have to do the last part.
So thanks for having me, and nice talking to you. If you don't mind me asking, where did you find me?
I probably found you through Gray Matter first.
Okay.
I mean, I've known about you longer than I was doing this.
Okay.
So I think the first thing I saw of yours was last year. Your Halloween poster probably was the first thing, if I had to put a pin on the first thing I saw of yours. So
all right, cool.
I could be wrong about that, but I think that's correct.
Okay.
I'm a huge poster. Actually, I just bought your Night of the Living Dead poster.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So if you saw,
so you're obviously a horror fan, but you're also a poster collector too.
Yeah. I collect horror posters.
Okay.
But yeah, I actually posted on your Instagram that I was happy I got one. So if you saw Endymion Sleeps, that was me.
Okay. Hopefully I didn't say something stupid.
No, you just liked it.
Just liked it. Sorry.
No, that's fine. You didn't know who I was. But yeah, I wanted one of those. Actually, I was teaching when it got released, and it sold out. And I was like, motherfucker. And yeah, so I was really happy when you had the APs up, because you never know with that.
It's funny because a lot of these posters go on sale during work days, and I always wondered, like, how do people buy them if they're at work? Like, some people work in front of a computer and it's easy for them, whether they're in an office, pre-pandemic or working from home. But there's people that like have to go to work that like to buy stuff too. It just never made sense to me why like that stuff was never sold like on the weekends.
Yeah. Mondo will occasionally do a timed release as opposed to an edition. And it's funny because I've never bought any of them. Because they've not been the ones I've wanted. Though I wish I'd bought all the Star Wars ones now because they resell for a fortune.
Well, they're only going to do the timed editions with like huge properties that are going to sell like 1 million copies.
Yeah, but I just I've kind of given up on Mondo, to be honest with you, because like it's just too frustrating.
Yeah, me too.
Like I've definitely been one of the bitter commenters on Facebook. Like, 3 seconds and it's gone. What is this?
The other companies are starting to get that same level of difficulty buying. It's like, anything that gets sold through Bottleneck, in particular, like those are gone like almost immediately to the same degree. So you're seeing like the collector base, the consumer audience grow for this stuff, obviously, because it's becoming more and more mainstream. But those edition sizes, they never increase.
Like they're always sometimes they get smaller.
Exactly. They get even smaller, and they do more releases, as opposed to doing increased size runs. And it's always the same people that get to buy them because they're just more experienced with it, or they're cheating to get in there to buy them. So like that issue of, making bigger run sizes for more people, I don't think has necessarily been addressed yet. But it's always a gamble when you're like, yeah, I'm going to print 1,000 of these, I'll sell them. And then all of a sudden you sell, 20 of them. And you're like, well, what am I going to do with this other 980 posters? So I think that's where, the mentality of people that make posters are still at that, like, oh my God, like counting the number of customers that they know that they can count on to sell 100 of them. And then, you didn't have to worry about it anyway, because now people have bought them all and they're reselling them on the secondary market for triple the price. So,
Sure.
We're at a weird junction of that collector space for posters, where it's like they need to remain small to be collector's items and to be valuable, but at the same time, more people want them now than ever before.
So you collect them too?
You know what? Not really. I don't collect anything anymore.
Okay.
I used to be huge on toys and action figures, like a serious problem with toys. And posters, just from like being friends with other artists, you get posters, like people just give you posters and you trade posters and stuff. And then when I moved from New York to LA, I was like, that's it. Like, it's all gone. And I spent the past like probably 2 years selling off my entire collection.
Oh, wow.
Of toys and posters and stuff. So pretty much all I have is what's behind me right now.
I definitely cannot say that.
Well, yeah, I live in a tiny apartment too. So it's like, there's a limit to how much shit I can have.
So, I mean, you mentioned moving from New York. You're from Queens.
Originally, yeah.
How long were you in Queens?
I spent my childhood there, really. And then, for high school, we were in Long Island for a short stint. And then I went to college in Rhode Island. And then we were there for a long time in New England for about 14 years. And then
where in Rhode Island? Did you go to school?
Yeah, I went to RISD, Rhode Island School of Design in Providence, but I lived in Pawtucket for a long time. And then from there, we moved to New York, to Manhattan, and lived there for a bit. And then my wife's job moved out here, so we've been in LA for the past 4 years about.
Okay. Yeah. I read that when you were a kid, Super Mario scratchers had a big influence on you and your decision to become an artist.
Oh, is that from another podcast or something? Did you
I do my research.
Oh my goodness, incredible. Yeah, do you remember? So the last person that I talked to talk to about these had no idea what I was talking about, and I just kind of.
I do, because I had them when I was a kid.
Yeah, they were awesome, but it was funny because like the whole point of them was to scratch them off and to like draw on them and stuff. But then you do that and they'd be garbage because you ruined it. But I used to always like, I remember vividly my first the first time where I really was like, oh wow, I can draw stuff that doesn't look like a stick figure. It was copying those Super Mario trading cards, and I still have those drawings today. But I figured, I think I might have been like 6 at the time, maybe 5 or 6 when I started doing that, and I think all the adults around me were like, holy shit, like this kid's a fucking genius. So it was all of a sudden like, that's what you're doing now. You're drawing Super Mario.
Have you done any stuff with games, or?
I actually had a big gallery show with my buddy Dan Mumford last year, pre-pandemic, at Gallery 88, where we did all video games.
Okay.
But that was like, in more of a gallery, fan art kind of space, more so than like official licensing stuff. I haven't done any official work for gaming, really. I play like 2 video games. I like video games.
Same. What do you play?
Well, I spent most of like the past like 2 years playing Red Dead Redemption.
Okay.
Just because it like became like a way of my life. So it was so immersive, and I couldn't stop until I completely 100% of the game. Then now I just play like fucking Call of Duty with my buddies, really, just because we just hang out online, really, and it's an easy game to kind of zone out on while you're kind of chatting with your buddies.
Yeah, Witcher 3 and Dead by Daylight are my 2.
Is that the other zombie? Is that the zombie game Dead by Daylight?
No, you can play as a horror icon, or you can play as a survivor, and you play against people online. If you're the icon, you try to kill the people. If you're the survivor, you try to start generators and escape.
Wait, is that the Jason game?
No, the Jason game is a separate one that came out slightly after, I think. That was through Kickstarter, actually.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna need to look up that one because that one sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's like my stress relief. I always play as either Mike Myers or Freddy Krueger. Get home and just. I mean, I got Freddy right here.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, your whole setup right now is very spooky.
Thank you.
And I'm having some serious spooky inadequacy right now because I feel like we're just like dark and light right now. So you got that.
I mean, to be fair, I do host a program here. So it was funny. We had the directors of Scream Queen on in October, and the one who was also the lighting designer right before we went on air, moved a candelabra in and adjusting everything so he could have adequately spooky lighting to match.
I mean, I can get my Jason mask, but that's really kind of all I have.
Mine's right here.
All right. Well, next time we talk, we'll do it in Jason masks.
Sounds good. I'm all for that. I guess talking about Jason's a good transition too. Jason Takes Manhattan LP was your most recent release to the public, at least that we're aware of. And congratulations are in order because that sold out pretty quickly.
That's awesome to hear. I didn't even know. Yeah, that was my first time working with Waxworks, Waxwork Records. Actually, my first record cover ever. So that was pretty awesome that they asked me to do, Jason Takes Manhattan. It's obviously it's not the best movie ever in that series for sure. But being from New York and being a horror fan, I feel like I have some special connection with it to some degree, and so it was really nice that they reached out for that one. And as you mentioned in the email, I've actually kind of worked on that a little bit before as in poster form, so it kind of those moments and those concepts kind of transferred over a bit.
Our first guest ever actually was Gary Pullen, who has done a couple of the Jason movies in that series that Waxwork has done, trying to encapsulate them all that have been rather popular as well. And we had Samalin on last time, and he was talking about sort of how he really enjoys doing gatefolds a lot, maybe even more than posters, because it gives him so many more options to play with.
Yeah, for sure. There's so many more surfaces and so many different ways to tell a story. It's like designing a book or reading a book in a way where, every surface is its own piece of artwork. So I really enjoyed working. It's a challenge and it's a lot of work because now, if you're breaking it down like designer brain, it's now you're designing 4 different posters all at once. And so, there's a balancing act between do I make every page this crazy piece of artwork, or are there quiet moments where, you're taking the viewer through an experience? So, I mean, I definitely failed on that part for this because every single page I went completely batshit crazy with detail. But I think, going forward and just looking at that records and vinyl covers as a whole, it's a challenge and it's a lot of fun to be able to figure out ways to apply artwork to it, thinking about how someone's going to interact with the piece.
Did you what's interesting about it to me, I mean, the artwork is fantastic, but as I have the whole set, I do collect a lot of things. And what's fascinating to me is that this LP, the physical LP itself, and this one, the coloration is very different than you see in a lot of Waxwork stuff. Did you have any say in that?
I had zero say in that, so I won't take any credit for it. But it does look cool because they went with the toxic version, which made a lot of sense because whenever you see stuff for Jason Takes Manhattan, it's very New York skewed, and I absolutely am guilty of that with this and for past work with Jason Takes Manhattan. But what was important to me was that trying to differentiate this from anything else that was already done, because you want to, when you're able to combine a really influential popular culture character like Jason and put him in a location like New York City, it conjures up all sorts of really iconic combinations. And so it makes some really interesting visual metaphors and, all kinds of stuff that necessarily didn't happen in the movie. But those are sometimes very easy to rely on.
Sure.
So, but I really wanted to kind of watch the movie again and make sure like it felt like the movie. And most of the movie takes place on a boat in Jersey.
Yep.
And like he's in New York for a very small amount of time, and then there's this big ending where he's in the sewer, melting into water. So I feel like all of that stuff really spoke to the movie. And what Waxwork did with the and granted, I don't know anything about pressing records and what colors they could be. I had some suggestions of what we should do, but they went and did something that was way cooler, and I'm really happy that they addressed that weird toxic sludge. And I mean, it could also represent the Hudson River. I don't know.
I wasn't expecting that. So you had done a poster in 2015, I think.
Yeah.
And like I cheat. I have my notebook of everybody's lives. I'm like Mr. Dark and Something Wicked This Way Comes.
I pulled it up. Can you see it?
Yes.
All right, there you go. So now we have talking. Now we can have some talking points over it.
Definitely. So what was the poster for? Because that I could not find.
That was for. I'm sure you're familiar with Electric Zombie.
Mm-hmm.
So I was working with Kyle, who owns that brand, and he wanted a poster. At the time, I was kind of like more up and coming with poster stuff, and he wanted to collaborate on something for his brand. And we landed on, at the time I was living in New York, so we kind of landed on Jason Takes Manhattan, of course. And he just asked me to do a Jason Takes Manhattan poster, and this is kind of where I ended up with it. But that one again, at the time sold out, and I wish I still had this poster to be able to sell. It's a popular one, but that's probably why you can't find it anywhere.
Was this one first, or was Beetlejuice first?
Beetlejuice was one of my first posters, like forever ago, for a company that I don't even remember the name of it. It was like real early on when licensed posters were like starting to get big, and Mondo at the time, of course, was really big, but you had all these like little branch companies that were popping off and acquiring umbrella licenses to put out movies and stuff. So I think it was called Three Barrels was the name of the company. But they're defunct at this point. I did that with them, and I did a Rambo poster, a First Blood poster with them.
That was your Rambo propaganda poster.
Propaganda. Oh no,
like a Russian propaganda poster, wasn't it?
No. I did that for Gallery 88. This was like a First Blood poster. They weren't very good, so don't look them up. But Beetlejuice was with them.
Okay. All right. So it seems to me, in looking into that, Bottleneck really has been an artistic home of sorts.
Yeah, for sure. I think, I try to work with everyone that I can. Gallery 88 obviously gave me my start in all of this. And once I started branching out and being able to do more licensed work, I started working with Gray Matter, that weird Three Barrels company that doesn't exist anymore, Scuzzles. I don't even know what they're doing. And then, Joe, and at that point when I was doing all that stuff, and I was working full time still, so the posters were kind of like secondary for me. Joe from Bottleneck and I had been talking, and I just couldn't figure out a way to fit him into my schedule, and I kept blowing him off for years, and I felt terrible about it. But once I stopped working full time and I started freelancing, and I had more time to take on projects like that, he reached out again, thankfully, because they're great people over there, and they're extremely patient with my bullshit. And I think the first thing that I did for them again recently was the Freddy versus Jason poster from a few years ago. And that really kind of rekindled our relationship, and they've just been really amazing over there with letting me have creative range over whatever I want to do in most cases.
Okay. The two most recent ones are, I think they came out at the same time, The Wolfman and Frankenstein.
Frankenstein came out a bit ago, and then Wolfman was the follow up about over Halloween or before Halloween, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, they're in the same Universal Monster series.
Sure. Are you completing that series?
I hope so. I mean, that's
Okay.
my plan. It's a matter of like, they have the license for Universal Monsters, so and they have a large stable of artists that they want to be able to use to do, everyone's take on it. So I think it's just a matter of like, their release schedule and working other artists in. Like, they certainly don't want me to do, sit around and have me do 7 straight Universal Monster posters. I think it's just going to be a thing where it's spaced out over time, but I'm sure at some point I can't imagine they're going to make me stop at Frankenstein and Wolfman.
It's interesting. I find the Invisible Man ones are the ones that sell out the most.
It's not surprising because I think it's that was one of the least great movies of the original Universal Monsters. It was a little bit campy and not as strong conceptually as some of the other ones, so it's very difficult to tackle a movie like that on top of the fact that he is just invisible. So how do you visualize something that you can't see? So I think in those cases where you have a character like that, that's less straightforward and you have more restrictions, that's when you really see creativity. So I definitely agree. Any Invisible Man poster I've seen from other artists has been really just the best representation of Universal Monsters, I think.
Do you have a pick
of Invisible Man posters?
Yeah.
I love the I think it was Elvis Dead that did it. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember. It's like a bunch of hands like pulling off his
unwrapping the face.
Unwrapping his face. That was a great one. I think Jonathan Burton did one also where it's
all negative space.
It's all negative space. It's just like
it's the bar fight and everybody forms his outline.
Yeah, and like, for me, like doing a series of Universal Monsters, it's like that's what I'm up against. Like, it's like there's been so much amazing artwork around Universal Monsters like forever that it's equal parts exciting and intimidating to be able to work on that franchise. But I think like that's where people really connected to the Frankenstein poster. Like, it was just like a take that they hadn't seen. It was super obvious, I think, but people just no one had thought of it yet. So it's about finding ways to be original in a space that's has a storied history of amazing artwork.
I think your Frankenstein is different even for you. Like, it's not what I think of when I think of your stuff.
That's a problem that I run into often with like basically everything that I do, because I don't think I necessarily have like a lockdown style that people like can pinpoint, which I think a lot of people would say is a negative, but I prefer to explore and try different things, and always I've been very fortunate to be able to experiment and explore at a professional level, and that's very hard to do, to be able to just mess around whenever however you want without worrying about is this on brand for me, is this on style for me? Because the way I approach posters is to be as original and respectful to the property and the brand that it's representing, more so than it trying to represent any sort of me.
I mean, I like that the style is different in each one to a degree. Particularly this one's very radically different. I mean, I do think of your work as being highly detailed, much more so than a lot of people's. I feel like you get much more nitty gritty kind of illustrative details with your stuff than you see in this kind of art. One thing about this that's striking to me that you take on somewhat frequently, but not always, is you alter the typography to suit your poster. That can go both ways. I think it's successful here. But I mean, sometimes I've seen it, and this doesn't pertain to you, but I have seen it where that goes horribly wrong for people when they change the typography of something that's iconic. So I mean, I think that's almost as big of a choice as anything in these.
I think, my personal opinion is that typography is really the tipping point for a lot of visual art, regardless of what the medium is, posters, records, books, or whatever. I think that's what kind of takes you into a different level. Like, I'm not just drawing pictures, I'm designing a concept. I have a complete vision of a product. And that doesn't necessarily mean that every letter is illustrated necessarily. It just means that you put the time into thinking about how typography is complementary to a piece, that typography most importantly communicates, because every piece of artwork and design that we see is a form of visual communication, and what communicates more than words. But a lot of times, especially if you're kind of like new to designing posters specifically, or earlier in your art career, people, designers and artists kind of, they don't allow themselves to really explore the world of typography. They feel like it's just a secondary element.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is it often becomes a standout mistake as opposed to something that fades into the background. So, typography for posters specifically and movie posters is just crazy important to address, not just the actual title, but also like the copy of the title block and the actors that were in it, and how you typeset that and all the details that you put into it. Because when you're finishing up a poster, you really just want to copy and paste a bunch of letters and be done with it. But spending that extra time to be able to make it truly a part of the piece, I think just is a detail that people are starting to notice more. Consumers are starting to notice, and it's starting to be the sign of an upper echelon designer or artist.
Yeah, it's interesting. People who will remain nameless, but nobody in this room or on this call. I bought a poster, sight unseen, that was guaranteed to sell out. But like certain collectors were offered from a company to buy the first 10, and oh my god, the typography. It's still in the tube. Like, I'm never going to take it out of the tube.
When you stop recording, you can tell me which one it was.
It was just I was not happy when I finally saw the design. I just was like, wow, that's $85.
Jeez.
Yeah. So that will give you some clues as to where it was from, probably. But now you do have, and I'm now the proud owner of it whenever it gets to me. You do have, in my opinion, the best Night of the Living Dead poster.
Have I not shipped it yet? Did you get a shipping?
I don't know, man. Because I collect tiki mugs too, and so it's just my email's like shipping label from.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
because I have a problem.
But
it is. I had been waiting for a while to get a Night of the Living Dead because it had to be one that I really liked. And because it's that kind of movie, and I've seen some really good ones, but it just wasn't quite what I wanted. And then the combo of the amazing illustration that gets deeper and deeper and deeper in the piece with the wonderful gimmick that Juan likes to tease me about, which is the glow in the dark, was like it for me. That was like that one. It's like the scene in Mulholland Drive, and he's like, "That's the girl. That's the girl." That's how I felt about the poster.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that was another challenge because, again, like so many artists, including like Gary Pullen that you mentioned earlier, have done, to me, like the most iconic Night of the Living Dead posters. So when Bottleneck reached out to me to do this, and I had never done a zombie poster before, which is crazy since all my handles for social media are zombie bacons, and I fucking love zombies. So it was like just this weight of pressure that was like, oh my god, like I can't fuck up zombies. But from my understanding, this was supposedly the first actual licensed screen print for this movie.
Okay.
because the rights to the film have been in the public domain until this year. So starting in 2020, this company Image 10 secured the rights. So this is now the first, from what I understand, is the first actually officially licensed screen print for it.
Wait, I'm confused by this.
Well, Night of the Living Dead has been in the public domain.
Oh, I know that. I know why. I had not heard that Night of the Living Dead had somehow entered into private right control post factum.
Yes. So yeah, well, I don't know if you noticed, but like other companies, like I think Fright Rags and a few other companies are now licensees of the brand. So starting in 2020, it's now a licensable property.
That's so weird. How do they do that retroactively?
I think there was I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not even going to try to.
I gotta look into that one because it's funny because actually, Kendall Phillips was on the show, and actually we showed Night of the Living Dead. But he was on the show, and his book cover for his second book is a screenshot from Night of the Living Dead, and his publisher gave him hell about using a movie still without having rights. It's like public domain, so I definitely gotta look into this.
Yeah, it could have just been some weird moratorium on when they started using it. I don't know. I do know that it's now licensable. I cannot confirm nor deny that this is the first actual screen print, but from what I've been told by the licensor, it is.
Sometimes too, you get a restoration, and the restoration becomes controllable. There's a restoration of Nosferatu that Kino controls.
Okay.
And Nosferatu is from 22, so it wouldn't, the original has to be in the public domain.
Yeah, I think this includes the original title, that's licensable, brandable as part of the ownership.
Okay. Yeah,
I don't know the ins and outs of it.
But, I don't. But I'm definitely gonna have to look into that one.
Yeah, but that was a fun one. Just get to draw a lot of hands
and teeth.
Yeah. So that was actually this was a technical challenge for the printer. I worked with the half and half on this because trying to get that depth, because the hands are obviously the most important part and they need to be pushed forward in the design. But it's not only just spending a ton of time drawing zombie faces, but then darkening them so much to the point that they feel like they're inside the poster takes a lot of layering of colors and transparent colors. And so just separations aside, the actual technique and skill required to print a poster like that is actually pretty impressive for the half and half to be able to pull that off.
Now, was it your idea to have it glow in the dark, since that's my gimmick I'm in love with?
I didn't realize that was your gimmick, but yes, that was it was just for you before I even know you were.
For me? Wow. You got in your TARDIS, we met, you redesigned the poster.
I honestly, I'm not a fan of glow in the dark.
Oh, really?
Because like you mentioned, I feel like it is kind of a gimmick and it never works as amazingly as you want it to, unless you're in a pitch black room and you charge the poster up in front of a light to get it to work properly. So if you're trying to reveal something, if you're going back to the Beetlejuice poster I did, I didn't put Beetlejuice on it because he's a glow in the dark layer, and that but conceptually that sounds amazing, but functionally I just feel like glow in the dark just isn't super prominent enough to be able to be anything other than the poster lights up. But I feel like glow in the dark and horror posters are so synonymous with each other, it just needed to be on there.
The other trick is to hang a black light over them.
Yes, yeah, that's going to really bring it out. But if you want to fill your house with black lights, that's
you do the mounted sconce gallery one. Art historian and curator here. I got you covered.
Well, now I need to see your house.
I have a lot of poster art, man. But that's my plan for it, actually. Okay. It's the gallery light it with a black light.
Well, the Night of the Living Dead poster, the regular has fluorescent ink on the title, so that will glow under black light like crazy. That's kind of the function of black light ink, fluorescent ink.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So how did that come about though? Like, how did Bottleneck approach you? Did you approach them?
No, Joe just emailed me and he was like, hey, how do you feel about doing Night of the Living Dead? And I was like, yeah, and I just did it.
Like one does.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's pretty straightforward process with them. We have a pretty good relationship where he doesn't even write text in the email; he just puts it in the subject line, like "Night of the Living Dead?" question mark. I'm like, yeah, I'll get started.
Another super popular piece of yours was last year, Halloween. You had two versions. You had the green leaves and the sort of like fall leaves version.
Yeah. So, I fought hard for this poster. This one shifted conceptually quite a bit from my original concept for it.
Okay.
And I'll before I show you, I have some sketches of the original to show you before, but I'll tell you that my first sketch for it was essentially, and I'll bring up the poster so you know what the hell I'm talking about here. So this is the final artwork for the poster, and my original sketch for this was essentially having the entire poster just be covered in leaves, like almost every single square inch of it just completely covered in the shrubbery. And there would just be some like small areas where you can kind of see through and see like hints of the shape of Michael Myers, but never really see him like in super full detail. And I felt like it wouldn't have made the most exciting poster ever, but I feel like, I just felt like conceptually it really spoke to the feeling of the overall movie. So that was a big no from the company, from Gray Matter. They were like, that's ridiculous. We're not doing this. So we went back and forth for 6 rounds where I would take out one leaf at a time to just be like, what's the most amount of leafage that I can put in this that I can get away with? So I'll show you my sketches. And so these were my original concepts. You'll see on the left, and there was one before this where you couldn't see any of them. And they were like, we can't sell a poster of just leaves. So I was like, all right, well, what if I bring his hand forward a bit? And they were like, well, can you show more of his face? So then I took some leaves away and I was like, I really want to hide him in there because it's kind of like Michael Myers, he's hiding in the bushes and stuff. And they're like, yeah, can you show his upper body more so people can see so it's not just a poster of leaves.
I like the middle one particularly.
It was probably better off that I drew Michael Myers just for the sake of trying to sell a bunch of posters.
Sure.
But it's one of those situations where concept and pragmatics clash to the point where conceptually this makes a lot of sense and it would be really funny to sell a poster that's just leaves that you can barely see the main character. But practically, they were probably right in terms of just draw the fucking character and stop wasting our time with this. But it did give me an opportunity. And if you're a fan of my work at all and you've seen my process stuff, I love taking photos of myself for reference. So basically every poster that I do is essentially a picture of me in my apartment somewhere posing as the character. So I just have folders and folders of this is obviously pre-pandemic haircut me. But being able to use my own reference photos for posters like this is a good way to have more ownable artwork and more recognizable artwork, and that's probably better off that way. But it is fun to do stuff like that.
So, I mean, in terms of the moment in the film, we did a deconstruction of Halloween the day after Halloween, because why not have a pun for a show? But we talked about this moment because I assume it's the moment when Linda and Laurie go up there and he's missing in the bushes, because we discussed it. He bolt off running because obviously he doesn't run ever. So was that your placement moment for him, or you just
I didn't think of it quite that way. I mean, yeah, he just kind of hid behind him. He hid behind the bushes. But yeah, it was definitely referencing that scene in particular. But in a way, like, but yeah, I guess maybe subconsciously it was like, what the fuck happened to him? He had to have started behind the bushes. Like, this is a matter of like, can you see him or can you not see him? Is he there? Is he not there? Kind of thing. But to touch on the part of he doesn't run or anything, like, how does he transport? How do any of the slasher guys get anywhere that fast?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just like this unexplained phenomenon that I'm just assuming like that all of them have a supernatural aspect to them. Like, they have to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we know Jason is.
Kendall came up with the theory that they draw sort of evil power from wherever they're located. Like Freddy does from Elm Street, Michael does from Haddonfield, Jason does from the campsite, and it powers them somehow. And when they're distanced from them, they're less powerful.
I think that makes sense. Like, they would obviously be more powerful in their own. They kind of draw from their own area. I think that makes sense. I think, like, I think we're talking about the same thing. I think, like, we know that Jason is now supernatural once they brought him back from the grave. That's when they started the whole supernatural thing. Freddy, obviously,
I always took Jason to be supernatural because he survived as a child in a lake for years.
I don't think that was. I think that he was still human at that point.
Okay.
I think there was a point in the series. I think it was 5 or 6 where they bring him back to life. He comes back to life, and now, like, everything's on the table. All bets are off. Like, he can do anything. Now, he can't kill him. He can teleport, like, whatever he wants. Freddy obviously lives near James. He can do whatever he wants. Michael Myers, I think, is a tough one because, like, he is so, like, an actual human. Like, why can't he die? But I think but again, like, I just think that he's not. I think that he is just the embodiment of evil. So he's imbued with, like, supernatural powers, kind of. And he just chooses to torment people by walking slowly.
So you're like the frame of reference from the actual movie. You're like Dr. Loomis, just calling him evil.
Yeah, I think, I don't think that was a throwaway line, really. I think, like, that was the clue to, like, why he can survive, why he can do all these things. Like, there's no, like, even if we're going off of the 2018 or 2019 one, the reboot sequel, like, even in that one, like, he had to have died at the end. Like, you're not getting out of there. You're going to burn to death. But now they're making Halloween Kills like he's not dead.
Well, have you seen the commercial for it?
I haven't. No, not yet.
So they're in the back of a truck going down the road, and the other way, all these fire trucks are going toward her house.
That's lame. That's
what it is.
So maybe they're trying to position it to where he's just human and he just, like, gets out of the situation,
or like, they're bringing the cult back. I don't know.
But, like, even then, like, he's got shot like a million times. Like, there's no way to survive that stuff. Like, I think he's just, like, a physical form of evil. I think that's, like, just an easy way. Like, don't over explain anything. That's just what it is. And he can teleport. Or he just hides behind bushes really well. And then I was right.
I think he's just hide and go seek Champ Haddonfield. 1978. You've mentioned it a couple times. I think it's a really interesting poster. It's definitely different than almost anything I've ever seen before in these kind of posters, which is your Freddy versus Jason poster for Bottleneck.
Yeah. So, that was, like, the first, not the first one I've done for Bottleneck, but after a long hiatus, I came back with that one for them. And this is another one. It started out drastically different than where it ended up. Because originally I wanted to do something that was a little more subdued, less hyper detailed and more graphic. But, we touched on this a little bit, but if, a lot of times when you try to deviate from a certain style that's expected of you, people get kind of uncomfortable with that. They're like, well, this is not what you usually do. Don't do this. So
I hate change.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't? But
I think it's great. Like I mean, as somebody who collects a lot of them too, it's just, I don't know, like I don't want them to all look the same on my wall necessarily, you know?
No, of course not. But that's why there's so many different artists to choose from if you want different styles. I think, we're in such a world of like branding and being able to be identified by just your work alone. And people want to put me in those categories like, oh, that's an Anthony Petrie. Just like you can look at a Tyler Stout and know that's Tyler Stout. But like, I just like, if I draw the same thing twice the same way, I'll go fucking crazy. I just can't do it. So this one in particular, like this was just my original like concept that I tried to pitch. It was like, what if like, instead of being these two opposing things, what if they were like kind of merged in a way? Like I wanted to do some sort of like mashup kind of concept that didn't just exist as a poster. Like it was never just, you're going to paint this on the wall and that's going to be it. Like I wanted to make a mask of like both of them having been merged, like really try to address multiple different physical products to try to make this concept seem a little bit more homogenized and understandable. So that's where I kind of started with this. And the answer to that was, no, we're not doing this. This is really stupid. And that's kind of, I was like, all right. He's like, can't you just do something that's like, what you normally do? So I was like, all right, I guess so. But, in keeping with wanting to do something that's a little bit more graphic visually and not necessarily like portraiture, figuring out, graphic mechanism that relates to both, but can also encapsulate a character and tell a story visually on a poster. I was like, well, blood, duh. That's kind of your binding element for them, and it's just a matter of like, visually, how do you combine these two characters using it? And this is just kind of where I ended up with.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. And as you say, I mean, obviously, style wise, but no, it's definitely a different take than I've ever seen in one of these kinds from anybody. And I don't think there's really much to do with Freddy versus Jason out there. And it's interesting because I feel like that's got a cult following now of its own in terms of the series.
Well, I gotta tell you, man, I love that movie. A lot of people give it hell because, it's got really bad moments in it, but to be able to see those two characters fighting on screen and like, it's one of the best iterations of Jason, I think. And like Nightmare Freddy, when he turns all like devil and shit, was amazing. There's some parts in there with some lines that, don't age well, particularly in the parlance of our times, like really bad shit, which is probably why it's not like, held in such high regard. But it's crazy that we just like can't do those original characters in a new movie and just have it not be complete shit. We're such fans of those characters that like we'll go into like the shittiest movies that they've been in and pick out all the parts that we love just because like we want it to be good. But just the fact that they were on screen together at the same time in the same space, and even like conceptually how they did it with Freddy getting into his mind and stuff and bringing him back, and I just thought that was really cool.
The next one I kind of want to talk to you about is really kind of different, but it's also a sort of pastiche piece, which is your American Horror Story piece.
Okay.
It's for season 6 is like a promo, but it's really a combo of the first 5 seasons.
Yeah, I'll pull it up real quick just so I can see what the hell we're talking about. But I don't have a ton to say about this one because sometimes you're asked to do work for properties that you don't necessarily like, or that you just haven't really seen much of. And while I did like the first season of American Horror Story, I thought it was awesome. The rest, not so much, or I just didn't really watch it. this is, a situation where, an agency reached out and was like, we're putting together style guide for American Horror Story season. Can you just do something creepy? So like, yeah, I can do creepy. Like it's, generic, it touches so many bases of horror in the show that you can't really go wrong with whatever visual imagery you pick for it. So, I don't have any in-depth analysis on that one. I'm not a big American Horror Story fan, but sometimes I gotta do shit that I don't particularly care for.
I mean, we have had many people tell us they've had to do ones that they're just like, pays a bill.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that I didn't enjoy working on it. I think sometimes disinterest can breed being really subjective about it, and that kind of breeds creativity. Like I'm not hung up on being a fan of it at all, so I can look at the property objectively, analyze it, and come up with a concept that makes sense for it, and it works. So it's a little bit less stressful in that regard. Like when getting like Night of the Living Dead, it was like sweating bullets. Like, what am I going to do? I cannot fuck this up. This is more like, well, I'll just do something cool, and then I don't have to really worry too much about fan service or like making appeasing myself sort of thing.
So you also have another one of these transitional pieces that alluded to something from earlier, because you did a gallery show at 88 Gallery with your chart show, and then you got to convert that into a Jaws poster. You're laughing.
I knew we were gonna touch on Jaws. I can't escape that poster at all.
Well, I mean, Mondo just re-released another version of its Jaws Tiki mug like 2 days ago.
Oh, really? That was that poster, like, it's gonna follow me around, I think, till the day I die. And it's it's an okay poster. I think it's just like
it's got a fan base.
Well, that's what I was about to say, is that I never realized how rabid the Jaws fan base is and what they can do to exalt any sort of artwork that's even related to Jaws. And I think that's it just makes instant hits out of whatever you make out of Jaws. It was just so shocking. Like that poster wasn't even supposed to be a poster. I was just going to do a hand drawing of a map just as a one-off. And then my wife was like, you need to just make this a poster. I think people will like it. So I did, and it just became this crazy, weird viral thing. And no short in part to Jaws fans just wanting to eat up everything. And it wasn't even just Jaws fans. It's everyone that lives in New England.
Okay.
Really just wants a Jaws poster. It's.
Well, people love maps too, so you took two things that people really are passionate about.
Yeah, well, that was the whole purpose of charts. Really, was if you look at the Freddy versus Jason poster, not everyone, there's a lot of people that like Freddy and Jason. Not a very tiny subsection of those people would buy a poster with their fucking faces on it, hang in their living room, right? It's hard to hang in a regular house unless you have a designated office or man room or whatever. But when you take those things that everyone likes, like Jaws, and you translate it in a much more digestible, subversive way, it makes artwork that you can then proudly hang in your house that doesn't look like a deformed creature nightmare person or a shark with blood spewing out everywhere. And I think that was the whole purpose of doing the chart shows, really, was to be able to have artwork for people who really love those properties, but they don't necessarily want to hang them, these really hyper aggressive portrait posters in their houses.
I mean, yeah, I whatever those people want to do.
Well, clearly you're not one of them.
Not at all. I mean, it's just me, so it's what I want it to be. It's my world. I mean, this is my office at school, so.
Oh my God, that's your office. That's incredible.
So yeah.
Do you put the Freddy skeleton in your chair and then hide under the desk to have meetings?
No, because it was a pain getting his glove entangled in the microphone like this. So I try not to move him ever.
Oh, so it's just a practical issue.
Yeah. Because Juan was asking me why I don't move the microphone sometimes. I'm like, nah, I don't want to deal with it. Because originally when we started this, he was here, like looking down at me, and then I don't even remember why we moved him, but when we did, it was just like,
he's staying there.
Oh, we moved him to put the Don Post masks out. That's why. Thank you. Oh, that's right, because we had David Weiner on, and we were talking about 80s horror, so I wanted to make sure we had the masks on. So it's not a plan, but it kind of looks like one. The next set, again, different style. I feel like I'm very different style in this case with your Modster Squad.
Yeah, sometimes you need to make artwork for yourself and kind of worry later about, is anyone else gonna like this? And for me, a lot of the times the things that I like are an amalgamation of things that I just like, that I put together. So obviously I'm a huge fan of horror and monsters and universal monsters, but that other side of me, really loves mid-century modern design and style, mostly architecture and furniture design. So this literally is the incarnation of combining these two seemingly unrelated things into these neat little vignettes that just kind of show monsters on their day off, really. And it's just like one of those things that stylistically, obviously it's nothing like anything else that I do, but it's more just kind of a fun therapeutic thing that I really just kind of do for myself. And people, really kind of gravitated towards this one also. I mean, these exist really as mini prints and little pins. I'll bring them up now so everyone can see them.
It's interesting. You see particularly the Gillman, you see him a lot in this kind of style. Particularly like tiki culture, you see the Gillman quite frequently.
Well, if we're talking about time periods, like when was Creature made? In the late 50s?
Yeah.
So now we're talking mid-century, right? So he's kind of ingrained into that time period. So it makes a lot of sense that he would be, if you're going to pull anything out of monsters and have it made in terms of mid-century, even tiki specifically, it's going to be Creature, aside from the fact that he's the coolest looking one. But tiki, obviously it works. It's a whole maritime theme. Like he's a creature. It works great for tiki stuff. But in terms of looking at monsters specifically and just viewing them through the lens of what if they lived in Cool Palm Springs house. That's just like combines everything that I like. And drinking as well. So that was like another. I gotcha. Another thing to add in there.
So you would definitely love my place because all my furniture is mid-century. Like I have an Eames chair and everything.
Ah, amazing.
But then I have all my horror stuff all around it. So it's this come to life.
Well, I've got some artwork to sell you.
You just did. Are you familiar with Shag's pieces too? Because that seems like something you would like.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he's got a store out in Palm Springs, and I'm actually moving out to Palm Springs.
Oh, nice!
In a few months. So I'll be more acquainted with his store for sure.
He used to have one on Melrose, actually. I think it just closed because of COVID.
Yep. Yeah, every house you look at out there has Shag stuff. It's he's a big part of that mid-century shag, and like literally called he invented like an entire style really called shag.
I actually was the preparator on a really early show he did in Orange County at Grand Central Art Center, and it had every piece of his up until that time.
That's awesome.
And that's how I found out about him. So I've been collecting his since 2006.
Oh wow. You're a big Shag fan, huh?
Yeah, I actually just got my Grail piece, which is the Hell diptych of the Apocalypse has been postponed and the Wages of Sin. I've wanted that piece for 12 years. And I just finally got a hold of it.
Did you get it off of eBay or did you?
No, his dealer had a set number 300, last one of both. So I was like, sold.
Nice.
That was my I don't know 2020 gift to myself.
Oh yeah, everyone needs to treat themselves this year. That's for sure.
But yeah, the other one I would recommend to you if you don't know her is Kim Bang.
Okay.
She does a lot with Gilman particularly, but yeah, I think you'd like her stuff too. She actually reintroduced gravel art a couple years back and does like this kind of style with gravel art. So she actually is working in like a mid-century medium too, and does like kits.
Okay. That's awesome. Well, I've got a whole mid-century house to fill, so I'll hit you up for some more recommendations then.
Yeah, and she's a really cool person. So let's see. The next set, it goes together is your Evil Dead 2 and your Army of Darkness.
Oh yeah. That's one of my personal favorites for sure. Let's see if I can bring this one up.
But no triptych with Evil Dead 1 for some reason.
It's tough because all the same themes kind of exist with Evil Dead 2, so
it's the same movie but more violent.
Yeah, but I again, to go back to doing the same things over and over again the same way, like forcing myself to do kind of literally a third time the same style, but also like the same movie that's been done before. I just had a hard time, making something that wouldn't seem like it was just, a money grab, really, to just make a third that would be like, oh yeah, these sell like hotcakes. Let me just print another one. I just, and I'm not saying it's off the table. Like I think I'm supposed to be doing it. I just never got around to it. It's just a matter of trying to find, a concept that really feels unique, that doesn't feel like I've already done it before, but anecdotally, the idea for Evil Dead 2 I had kicking around for a long time, and I really love this concept, and I hadn't really seen anything like it done before. Taking a Necronomicon page and just having it look like key art for the movie.
Yeah,
and so I pitched this idea originally to Gray Matter, who had the license for it, and they fucking hated it. So I was like, all right. So a year passes and I pitched it again, and they were like, we're not super into it. So, I waited a bit again, and I'll bring out my sketches for it. My sketches are fucking terrible for this. But
how do you really feel about them?
It was really just a matter of trying to get them to say yes on the concept. The original concept was to have variant where the variant would be him as Evil Ash.
Yeah.
So I waited again, and I pitched it again, and I was like, I really like this. If you don't want to do it, I'm just going to do it myself. And they finally were like, all right, fine, we'll do it, but we're just going to do a really tiny run, no variant, and we're going to take out some colors. So it's really, really super cheap. So I was like, all right, I thought it was a good poster, and I really believed in the concept. And I don't think any of us were expecting the response that we had to this, because it's sold out. Like, I think my fastest sellout of posters for anything I've ever done. And it's definitely one of my most popular prints. It's been the Evil Dead one specifically has been used on multiple DVD covers. I'll put that up now, but that was on a couple of different steel cases. And I even won a Clio award for best key art for this one. So it's definitely one of the posters for me that holds a special place. And once again, I always get to use. There's a little bit of me in every poster, because if it's one thing that I love doing, it's putting myself in posters and talking about myself.
Hilarious.
So,
man.
So that one, and then once those sold, pitching Army of Darkness was easy.
Yeah, sure.
Not quite as big a rabid fan base for that one, even though it's a far superior movie. However, I will say that Ash vs. Evil Dead, the TV show, is one of the best TV shows ever. First of all, it's by far the best horror TV show of all time. So if anything, I would way prefer to do Ash versus Evil Dead triptych than another regular Evil Dead.
Okay. Interesting.
Did you not like that show?
I wouldn't call it the best one ever. I don't know.
Dude, what? The part in the morgue where he's got the body over his head and
it's good. I didn't say it's a bad show. I just said I wouldn't.
It's incredible. That show was amazing. If you haven't watched Ash vs. Evil Dead, it is the best. So I have extremely unpopular opinions on horror. If you haven't noticed.
Well, no. I mean, we talk about this anymore post October. We've talked with almost every guest about horror blasphemies.
Okay.
Because we all have our horror blasphemies, and so give me your best horror blasphemy.
I don't know that it's a blasphemy. I think I just like, as you can see here, I think Saw is a masterpiece of modern horror.
Saw 1.
The Saw cinematic universe, as I like to call it.
Oh wow!
All of them together tell a complete story. With all the same actors throughout the entire thing, yeah. It is cinematic masterpiece altogether. I love Saw and Hostel.
I like Hostel 2 a lot, actually.
All of them are great.
Are you like Hostel? Is it 3 where
they go to Vegas?
Yeah. You like Hostel 3?
Dude, Hostel and Saw.
See, I like the opening bit of Hostel at 3 that gives you the fake out.
Every part of that movie is great. The whole I don't want to ruin it for anyone that hasn't seen it, but the whole Vegas angle where they brought it back to the U.S. and now it's like this, multinational organization. It's just.
I'll tell you my favorite part, and it doesn't really give anything away. The very ending when they're drinking the champagne, when they've clearly run out of money to make the movie, and they just have a piece of tinfoil on top of the bottle that they've opened. I think that's my favorite part of the movie because it's just because it's supposed to be this really bougie house, and it's just this cheesy community theater champagne bottle.
Budget wise, if we're talking like that whole movie was like a way lower budget than the other one. Than the other two. It was crazy, but I still thought it was just conceptually just really
it's a good really idea.
And I think we're living in like the golden age of horror right now. Like every modern horror movie, I think, is just the best we've ever had.
So we've talked about this too on the program. In theory, this is the third golden age.
Okay. Well, what would you consider the second one?
The second one is supposed to be from like Psycho through 82, 84.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, those are iconic. Those are iconic for sure. Like no one's going to sit here and knock Psycho like Hitchcock.
Well, Psycho, Rosemary's Baby, Exorcist.
They're for sure iconic, but here's the thing. It's like if we're looking at it through purely a horror lens, these are all kind of similar in terms of this supernatural devil is bad kind of horror stuff. Or it's like I don't know, the killer's who you didn't think it was kind of thing. And these are, masterful movies that were shot like incredibly and super iconic and have definitely influenced every movie that came after. But I feel like if you're looking at like truly unique movies, horror movies that are really telling of the times that they're made in and are telling different stories that we've ever seen before. I think if you're looking at Get Out, Hereditary, Midsommar, even if you go to like the new Evil Dead one, the reboot one, there's just so like last night I watched. Have you seen His House yet on Netflix? Mm-hmm. It was incredible, but it's just looking at all of these tired concepts of horror and putting them through these lenses that we've never seen before, that have been either subverted or never even addressed. that is just so refreshing and exciting for the genre that I think that it's like, I think a lot of fans look at some of those and they're like, oh, it's weird, I don't get it. But because it's not classically what you look at as horror. But it's just so exciting to me that like horror kind of branches out now and kind of encapsulates so many different concepts. And I think just every like new horror movie is like, it's so much better than what we got from the early 2000s and late 90s for sure. Like it's refreshing that like I'm interested in seeing every horror movie that comes out nowadays.
Okay. I liked Color Out of Space a lot this year.
Okay, I didn't like that one so much, but the rest of them.
I actually prefer the German version of it, but
I didn't really. I mean, that was like a compendium of Lovecraft kind of stuff. So, like even that for me, like I didn't like it because it's just like, okay, here's Lovecraft again. Like you've seen Lovecraft a million times, so like if we're talking Nicolas Cage and horror, like if you look at what they did with Mandy, which like granted I hated the first half of the movie because it was boring as fuck, but that whole second half of the movie, which is crazy like hellscape carnage horror movie, like that is so like out of left field for horror stuff that is like so much more fun and interesting now than like telling those same like weird space alien stories again.
there's a lot of good Indonesian horror out right now too. Like Satan's Slaves is quite good.
Okay.
If you have Shudder.
I don't know about that one, but like if we're talking like even international horror, like the Korean horror movies, they're incredible. Like if we're looking at like The Host or Train to Busan, like and I don't think One Cut of the Dead was Korean. I'm not sure where that was from, but even if you're looking at all these international horrors that are now like rising to prominence and being super duper interesting and mainstream, like just it's everywhere nowadays.
Yeah, you definitely see a lot more horror being produced, and I mean, just the genre seems to be growing in terms of its audience, which is quite nice. I mean, particularly for people like us, I suppose.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, if there's a property out there that you haven't gotten to work on, or that you're holding off to work on until you find the right project for it, or what's the dream that's not been done? Is it Saw?
I don't know that I could mentally handle doing a Saw poster because I love it so much. It's like it would be another Night of the Living Dead situation where I'm like just under crushing pressure to do something that doesn't suck, even though like no one like Saw anyway, so no one would really care. It's tough. Like I work, I'm privileged in the fact that I get to work on so many different properties with so many different brands, either in posters or professionally, that I don't really have, I don't really want for anything really at this point. I think if I had to think of a movie that I love a lot that I would like to do, it'd probably be Planet of the Apes.
Okay.
Because, like I love that movie, the original one, so much.
Version. Okay.
The Heston version, the first. Actually, I love all the Planet of the Apes movies. The Planet of the Apes cinematic universe, as I like to call it.
The Marky Mark ones too, huh?
No, those are outside. That's we're not talking about reboots. That one's terrible. That one's a tough one because I've seen so many posters that are like amazing for Planet of the Apes that I'm like, already know going into it that it's not going to be the best poster. So it's hard for me to even start on something. I think like if you look up my buddy Paulo Rivera did a Beneath the Planet of the Apes poster. I'm not sure if you've seen that one at all, but it's like you're not going to get a better Planet of the Apes poster than that one. And then I think I had an idea for one, and then I saw that Laurent Duro did a Planet of the Apes poster where they're the Mount Rushmore, and I was like, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. So I think
that was different for him too, like that,
Yeah, for sure, and I love it because I love seeing other artists go outside their comfort zone. I think that's really where creativity lies, is when you're pushed to be, when you have constraints and you're pushed to be outside of where you're comfortable living. That's really where you're going to see a lot of great work, I think, personally.
I'm still waiting for the definitive Halloween 3 poster. Like, I haven't found my holy grail
I'm gonna
Halloween
be
3.
all right. Here's my horror blasphemy. I've never seen horror Halloween 3.
See, mine is that it's my favorite Halloween movie.
You know, the tide has changed quite a bit on that one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it started out as like being like, well, there's no Michael Myers in it. This movie fucking sucks. And now it's like such a huge cult favorite. And I know
I've enjoyed it since the 80s. So,
yeah, well, you're an OG there.
Yeah, I've always liked the movie. I was obsessed with because in Search of Darkness, and David Weiner talked about people like in the box covers of films in the video store, and it is my all-time favorite box cover too for a film.
Is that the one with the TV set on it?
It's the silhouettes of the kids, and it's like walking against the sky in Phoenix.
Okay.
And you have like the witch and like the devil baby's wearing the skull mask and the pumpkin mask, and they're just walking because they're trick-or-treating. But it's a really cool moment. And actually Disney ripped it off.
That's not totally surprising.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
Yeah, this is my.
If they can get away with not paying for something, they're going to do that.
I've never seen it. That's my horror confession. I know that I need to watch it. I just like, I don't know. It's hard for me to go back and watch old movies that I've missed.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Than watching newer movies. Like, I'll watch anything that comes out.
Sure.
Or anything recent, but like going back and watching older horror movies that I may have missed is a little bit tough for me for some reason, because you don't have the sprinkle coating of nostalgia that helps you through it.
Okay.
So you're kind of like hypercritical of a lot of like the old retro way of doing movies, and you don't have that sugary coating of nostalgia that kind of like, yeah, it gets better. Like, I remember this part when I was a kid.
Well, if you're looking at new ones, I recommend checking out, I think it's Tigers Don't Cry is quite good.
Okay.
And The Cleansing Hour is campy, wonderful exorcism fun.
Okay. I'll have, if you don't mind emailing those to me,
sure.
I'll check them out for sure.
They are very different movies.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great thing about horror, really. Like, it's such a big umbrella about, you know, how many different subgenres that can live under there and that can be horror. That's why I think like horror fans are really, you know, so widespread. Like, there's so many people that love horror because it can be sci-fi horror, it can be action horror, it can be mystery horror. Like, there's so many different things that you can find to like. So like, it's easy to bring people into the fold of horror movies.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for joining us tonight. It was really informative and great, and getting to talk about your work and being in quest of a style that's not going to happen.
I
appreciate it. I really do. Say what?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm not on any quest. I'm not on a quest of any style.
I know. That's why I think it's great.
Yeah, I'm on a quest to try everything.
It's even better.
Yeah. Wait, did you start recording?
Say what?
Did you start recording?
Oh yeah.
I'm just kidding. I know.
Thank you for joining us, and have a spooky evening.